data collected during these years may not be representative of the number of years a person can expect to live. It adds that the figures may change if mortality rates were to return to pre-pandemic levels. An improvement of 0.9 years was seen in the last decade in life expectancy at birth for both males and females, and women continue to outlive men. As for life expectancy at the age of 65, it went up to 20.7 years in 2022. That's up by 0.5 years in the last 10 years. A journey spanning 200 years explores how Singapore has evolved as a travel destination. Prepare to go back all the way to the 1800s, when a new museum exhibition launches this week with around 600 artifacts on display. CNA Sherry Locke reports.
Your flight won't take off at the airport, but will instead at the National Museum of Singapore. Grab your ticket and climb aboard.
The curators were inspired by the travel guidebook, so if you step in, you get to see very clearly that the concepts and the design are inspired by a travel guidebook.
Chapter 1 in the guidebook is about getting around Singapore. Here, there is a range of transport options to choose from. There's the railways of the early 20th century, or the luxurious Singapore Airlines suite cabin, which debuted in 2007. Once visitors touch down, they'll have to look for a place to stay. Exhibits in this section uncover the cultural significance of iconic local landmarks, like the Raffles Hotel. Then it's time to dig into a slice of food history. Visitors will be introduced to this array of hawker tools and utensils. Some of these cups and glasses were a common sight in coffee shops from the 1950s to the 2000s. No visit to Singapore will be complete without a trip to the country's famous shopping district and entertainment establishments.
The exhibition looks at how Singapore has been projected, or how we have presented ourselves to the world. We hope visitors could also go back and kind of reflect on some of these imageries and impressions, and also think about what are their own definition or what are their own impressions of who they are and what Singapore is.
The museum is relying on more than just artifacts to attract visitors. These interactive pop-up booths aim to bring the activities and experiences mentioned in the exhibition to life. At this 80s-inspired disco room, for instance, visitors will be guided through a dance routine, so to get a sense of what it was like to party back then. 2 other transportation and hotel-themed rooms will be introduced in August. A theatrical audio tour will also be added. The exhibition will run until 19 November.
The International Space Station is welcoming its first 2 Saudi visitors as part of a private mission chartered by Axiom Space. SpaceX's chartered rocket docked at the orbiting lab nearly 16 hours after blasting off.
And we have our first views of the Axiom crew members floating aboard. First is Commander.
The 4 guests will spend just over a week at the ISS, and the mission is commanded by former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. She's joined by John Schaffner, an American businessman paying his own way. The Saudi government, meanwhile, is picking up the multi-million-dollar tab for fighter pilot Ali Al-Qarni and stem cell scientist Rayana Barnawi. Ms. Barnawi is the kingdom's first female astronaut. She is also the 600th person to enter Earth's orbit.
I'm here not only representing myself, but representing the hopes and dreams of everyone back home, everyone in the region. We are here gathering with different cultures and this international collaboration. This shows how space brings everyone together.
This mission is not just for me and Rihanna. This mission is all Saudi people with ambition and dreams, and also you can dream big, because in our country, with the support we have, you will be able to reach it.
And liftoff, Falcon 9, go Axiom.
The Dragon capsule atop a Falcon rocket had departed from the Kennedy Space Station in Florida on Sunday. This is Axiom's second private mission in collaboration with NASA and SpaceX. Ahead on Asia Now, we'll check the top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Sydney seeking closer ties with Quad partner Australia. Defence, trade and clean energy are set to dominate talks. Plus, concern rising that supplies needed for Myanmar's recovery from Cyclone Mocha are coming too slowly before the onset of seasonal monsoon rains.
And in business news, India embarks on another currency exchange program, this time to remove its highest denomination currency from circulation. But will it be as disruptive as the country's 2016 demonetization drive? We will explain.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
If you put anything in digital form, you are at risk for cyber attack.
The lockdown that scarred a generation.
सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये है कि तालीम एक विंडो है ये पूरी कंप्लीट यूनिवर्स Pulau Senang became an island of terror.
Hacked his body. And then he was burned alive by the very people who want to help.
I ran to the gym like a hell. I think that this is a new world disorder.
Our profession was music, and that profession was not welcome.
If you could make almost anything, what would you do with that?
We have artificial intelligence, which will tell us which is the best embryo to implant.
Over here, tech support means scarce.
Kalau Mila waktu main itu kayak ngerasa seneng bangga sama diri sendiri.
Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity. It is precisely its diversity that made Indonesia what it is. Chandni Matwani, CNA, Jakarta.
This is Asia Now.
It is 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Chan Yu in your top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Sydney seeking closer ties with Quad partner Australia. Defence, trade and clean energy to dominate talks with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Concern rising that supplies needed for Myanmar's recovery from Cyclone Mocha are coming too slowly before the onset of seasonal monsoon rains. Plus, scientists warn that 2 billion people will suffer dangerous heat conditions if global warming reaches 2.7 degrees by the end of this century.
Each 0.1 degrees C of warming or warming avoided really matters. It can reduce the numbers exposed to unprecedented heat by 140 million people.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a two-day visit in Sydney, or to Sydney, for talks with his Australian counterpart, Anthony Albanese. That meeting will take place tomorrow. Both leaders are expected to discuss a range of issues from investment to defence and migration. They will attend a community event at the Sydney Olympic Park tonight, with more than 20,000 members of the Australian-Indian community there. Mr. Modi's visit to Australia comes despite the cancellation of the Quad meeting. The event was called off after US President Joe Biden announced that he would no longer be attending because of debt negotiations in Washington. Well, Mr. Albanese says he is honoured to host India's Prime Minister for the first time since being elected. Mr. Modi last visited Australia nearly a decade ago. Our Roger Maydad has more on the significance of tomorrow's meeting.
It's extremely important. Prime Minister Modi and the Australian PM have built a good relationship, and that reflects a genuinely close bond between the two nations who've established mutually constructive ties over the past decade. India is now Australia's fourth biggest export destination and its largest source of immigrants. In fact, there are roughly 750,000 people declaring Indian ancestry living here, and that figure is